This is where the problems start. And of course, it's circular, but this is where they start. So let's take an athlete, young John, and he is training for a half Ironman distance race. Young John is very, very similar to how many, even most athletes approach it, where they are hyper-focused. They back themselves into a corner and they come through 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 weeks where there is this looming deadline of a race coming up. And they have a very short-term, almost obsessive lens of, I've got to get ready for X, Y, and Z, half Ironman in John's situation. And it creates a whole cascade of issues. One of the primary is that young John, as he has got this, I'm all in, here we go, I've got 16 weeks to get ready for my race. The tendency then is for John to overload his training recipe, and at least overload the training recipe relative to, if he really honestly looked at his life, relative to his non-negotiable life commitments. And this short-term thinking of training from race to race, year on year, every time, and saying that's when I'm going to put the X in the calendar and go and train for whatever my event or events are for the year, it tends to lead athletes like John to overload the scheduling calendar on a week-to-week basis. And this is a challenge because it's a good way to get really, really fit, but it's also a way to get really tired as well and have an increased risk of components like injury. But beyond that, when you have an amplified training recipe relative to what you can truly sustain in life, there are strains that occur, strains on your family and your friends, strains on your ability to perform in the workplace, and on top of it, strains on some of the things that most athletes realize are really important, what we might label the supporting habits, but are so easily and so quick to be skipped or bypassed or shortened. Things like sleep and self-care and proper fueling and eating habits. I've got to get ready, the race is looming. And it's just a natural tendency that when you can't fit it all in, we compromise. And so by the time athletes like John, and in fact broader athletes, arrive to their A races, if you'd like to label it that key event, there has been this almost imperceptible sometimes accumulation of physiological and hormonal stress. And we see this all the time with athletes arriving very fit because they are goal-driven, they are obsessed, they are getting ready for their events. So fitness is not the limiter, but they're fatigued. That's why we have a very cute saying at Purple Patch, fit and fatigued. Now on top of that, it's very, very common, and I'm sorry if this is feeling like a dagger in your heart where you look in the mirror and think, goodness me, this is me. But also along that journey of the 3, 4, 5 months that John or other athletes like him train for these events, there's a very high frequency of little niggles, of little injuries, little setbacks. And on top of it, it just feels as the race has been looming. Remember we talked about fit fatigue, a whole bunch of inconsistency with maybe niggles, and they get to the race and they're just burnt out, mentally burnt. And obviously, John is just ready for a break. He needs a break. He needs, rightfully, to give back to his family, go and focus on work. And the outcome of that is natural because for the last months, where he's very goal-driven, he wants to achieve, for the last months, he's been accumulating a very high training load relative to life commitments, and he's sort of been proverbially burning the candle at both ends. So it's obvious and natural that by the time the season ends, he's going to be like, this is not sustainable. It doesn't fit into life. I've got to take a break. I've got to go and look after my family and friends. I've got to go and be a good boy at the workplace, etc., etc. And this is really common. And in fact, this approach of training, of overload relative to pragmatism, what's genuinely really enabling or sustainable in life, it ends up cementing people's habits with how they approach the sport globally. And it cements a truly flawed belief that is important. And that's that folks finish the season and they think, goodness me, I have to take a complete break. I've got to get back to work, family life. And the truth is that this is a demanding sport. Triathlon, 3 disciplines, running, obviously long distance, ultra running, even longer distances. The training is just not sustainable year round for me. It's just what it is. I'm busy, so it's not sustainable. But at the same time, athletes are ambitious and goal-driven. And so they reach the end of the year and they say, okay, great, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go and do other stuff. I'm going to take the monkey off my back. But next year, I want that to be a big year of performance. That's what I'm going to do. So when I take a break now, I'll turn the page, I'll rejuvenate, and then I'll be back. And in fact, this approach, probably the most common approach, particularly amongst triathletes that we've really studied, who consider themselves year-round, botch that off-season phase. And with just these 2 or 3 months that we're talking about here, where they make a mistake of going random, they end up spending the rest of the next year, when they return to full commitment, playing catch-up. And that is the thing that leads the consequences, because we come to the top of the cycle. Goodness me, I've got to get ready. Here comes my obsession again. Let's layer on. I haven't got any time to waste. I need to build my fitness, yada, yada, yada. Here come the niggles, etc. And so it's really understandable. And I think this is important. It's really understandable when we, or me as a coach, says to that athlete like John, you know what? I really want you to engage in a structured off-season. It's no wonder they rebel. It's no surprise that they rebel. And of course, through their lens, what they're thinking is, I've already tried training in a structured and progressive way for 30 weeks every year. And now suddenly you want more? Goodness me, I don't even want to do that. Let alone my partner's going to kill me if I do that, and I'll probably get fired from my job. You get the picture. But the truth is, there is a better way for you, a much smarter way, I believe. And there is a way in which we collectively can integrate the sport into your life. And it's a way that is much healthier, can provide you with a lot of the benefits with stable energy in life, but also enable you to achieve great performance gains while decreasing injury risk and frustration. There is a way where I can get less niggles, feel better, improve, and it integrates into my life where the sport doesn't feel like a monkey on the back. Yes, you can. That's true. It sounds almost too good to be true, but I consistently see it when we get the recipe right for the athlete. And so you can have better.